We are here in the second match of Lunatic High versus Miraculous Youngster. We're going to start off here with the Youngster's attack onto Numbani. Lunatic High is set up with a pretty standard comp. Typically on Numbani you do see the Soldier 76 because of these long engagements that we'll be having, but the first to go down is Tracer from the Youngsters, followed quickly by Ana and the 76. Lunatic High is going to go ahead and hold this first point, this first attack from going through. You saw the Tracer there went very deep in the back to try to take out Lunatic's High supports, but of course the supports of Lunatic High are some of the best in the world. They were able to peel and corner the Tracer and take him out. Now rolling on to the second attack here. Looking for that Tracer in the back line, but they do not find it. The rest of the Youngsters are down the center path and are currently bullying Zephyr, trying to bully Zephyr out of the mech. Manages to get away in the last second. Miro also running from the DPS of Miraculous Youngster, but as he does so, they manage to take down the Soldier 76 from the side of Youngsters. Youngster, rolling in with the self-destruct, manages to take out one. Tracer, with the pulse bomb, takes out Rouge Hung. And the Youngsters are going to start to roll onto this point. They've already gotten a little bit of a charge onto the point, and now they're just cleaning up the remaining members of Lunatic High. Miro in the back trying to stall out with a Primal Rage, gets focused down pretty quickly. And now Zephyr trying to do the same thing, but the same fate as the Miraculous Youngsters grab the payload on Numbani. Now pushing forward. I think they forgot the payload. Nobody's on there now. Okay, now somebody's managed to get on there. There, Lucio falling back to make sure we roll the payload forward. Moving on to the streets phase here of Numbani. Typically, we don't expect the defense to hold these street phases. It's very difficult because of how far away the spawn is. But they may be able to pull it off. Youngster starting off with a tactical visor. A lot of that was eaten up by the defense matrix from Zephyr, who's now been demeched, and we already have 3 members of Lunatic High dead. As the you see Rouge Hung stall out the point for a few seconds before getting taken down, and we have a flashback here of Leaves' pulse bomb taking out 2 members of Lunatic High. This should be the last fight of the streets phase here, as Lunatic High rolls in to try to defend. But they're getting focused down. Youngsters started off with a sound barrier to start off the fight. Zephyr pops off a self-destruct, but gets nothing. Lunatic High is 1 down, at this now 2 down at the start of this fight. Youngsters has 1 death of their own, but they are cleaning up the members of Lunatic High, and will shortly have this second point on Numbani. Rolling in here to the last phase of the map. The Youngsters are looking at 3 ultimates on their side. A Transcendence, a Tactical Visor will be there shortly, as well as a Pulse Bomb. Lunatic High, however, will only have 2, maybe 3 ults. Depends on how fast Miro and Rouge Hung can build those up. Looks like they should have those in time for the next fight, which is breaking out now. The first to be demeched, Zephyr, as the Youngsters roll on with a Transcendence. Of course, Lunatic High answers with a Transcendence and a Sound Barrier. You don't normally see those 2 in conjunction. They're more powerful when you're not using them together. And because of that, a few members of Lunatic High were focused down. But Lunatic High comes back strong, takes a few out, and manages to hold this last point. Just barely. but they did enough to save themselves from that push. 3 minutes left. My Late Young is going to switch over to a Zarya to get this last point. We also see a switch onto McCree by the Youngsters and a Reinhardt. So they're going to go with a slow, steady push in favor of a dive. Who Are You tries to get in the back line to get somebody with a pulse bomb. Doesn't get anybody. But Miro also jumps in and starts focusing a few down as Fleta gets a tactical visor kill onto the Youngsters' McCree. Now 3 down from the side of Youngsters. Now 4 down on the side of the Youngsters. Lunatic High was able to hold that push off and stall out a minute of time from the Youngsters. But on the next push, Lunatic High will only have a Transcendence. And the Youngsters are coming in with a Reaper. They're going to try to punish Miro's dive here, hopefully having Miro dive onto their team and then quickly take him out with the Reaper. The barrier's coming out here from the Zarya, has gotten a almost 100% charge, but it's not enough as Lunatic High rolls in with a Transcendence and just cleans up the Reinhardt from the Youngsters and focuses him down enough to kill. And now you see Lunatic High will have maybe 5 ultimates for this next push. And the Youngsters are running very low on time to take this last point. They've starts off with a Graviton Surge here on the payload, answered by a Sound Barrier from Lunatic High, and Earth Shatter comes out from the Youngsters, but doesn't get anybody. The Reinhardt was nano boosted, but had to keep his shield up to defend from a self-destruct. And once again, Lunatic High has held this point and successfully stopped the pushes from the Youngsters. They did use a lot of ultimates to keep themselves alive there, but you already see Rouge Hong is at 60% on his next Transcendence and is getting ever closer to having another one. This was going to be the last push for the Youngsters, as they only have a little over 30 seconds left to take this last point. Warrior's going to try to stick somebody with a pulse bomb to stop the push before it even starts and give his team a great advantage. Hasn't been able to get that stick yet, hasn't thrown it out yet, and has gotten very low on health. Youngsters are pushing on the point with a Sound Barrier. Who Are You tries to stick it, but it is blocked by a barrier from the Youngster Zarya, and a Deadeye comes out to try to push off the members of Lunatic High off the point. They disengage, but they're rolling back in now. The first kill is from the Youngsters onto Miro. Looks like he dove in too deep and was taken out by the Reaper. That's exactly what the Youngsters wanted to do. But with a spawn so close, he should be back in the fight shortly. Another kill onto Toby here as Fleta gets into the back line to try to flank the Youngsters from behind. A Graviton Surge from the Youngsters come out and is able to take down 3 members of Lunatic High. Now the spawns are staggered and they're coming out shortly. Miraculous Youngsters had a miracle and were able to take the final point of Numbani in the last seconds of their push. We are going to switch over to Lunatic High's attack onto Numbani shortly. We'll see if they continue running their dive comp, which I expect they will, or if they'll try to do that slow and steady push that Miraculous Youngsters has had so much effectiveness with. Lunatic High is quite better on the dive, so we can expect to see them stick on that for the entirety of the match. It was really the Youngsters' ability to move off onto Reaper, punish Miro for diving, and then clean up the kills from there. Great spawn staggering from the side of the Youngsters to get that final point. We see the Heritage Museum, which will soon have an exhibit of Ify. You see the Lucio is no longer in town, and instead, Ify has taken center stage. Some map updates from Blizzard, keeping their lore alive. All right, youngsters are going to be holding with a Sombra, trying to shut down the abilities of Lunatic High. We see a pretty standard comp coming out from Lunatic High as the youngsters are pushed very far forward. We don't typically see teams pushed so far forward on defense. See if this works out for them. Typically, you want to attack on the point because it is a long walk from spawn here on Numbani. The gates are about to open, and there should be a surprise attack from the youngsters. Miro jumps in first, gets focused down a bit, but not killed. The first to die is Fleta, losing that Tracer v Tracer battle. As we see, who are you trying to do some cleanup here? Rouge Hong is the second to go down, very close to the point. And now the members of Miraculous Youngsters are having a great time focusing down the targets. Great shot calling here from the side of the youngsters, picking one target and focusing down. They're now going to back up towards the point. They've successfully stalled out some time from Lunatic High, and now they're going to take a more standard approach to defending. Fleta almost gets punished for poking his head out as the EMP comes into the backline of Lunatic High. Well, that's what he was looking for anyways, but there weren't enough team members of Lunatic High around in order to successfully punish it. And now we see the EMP come out from the side of Miraculous Youngster. First to go down is Miro. Once again, I think Miro is diving too deep and getting punished for it. The youngsters are going to use a self-destruct to try to get a pick on this push by Lunatic High. Lunatic High now has 4 ultimates of their own. Let's see if they can use these in combination with each other to try to get this first point. As we start off this fight, Fleta is going to get punished for looking too deep, but manages to get back to his team and take out the Tracer of the youngsters. Sombra follows soon after, and that excellent shot calling that I was talking about before, now Lunatic High is showing off their own version of that shot calling. Saw a sound barrier come out from their side. Don't know if that helped the team too much. They may have already gotten to where they were without it. But regardless, they have a good amount of percentage onto this point as youngsters try to come in with an EMP to gain control back, and it looks like they might be successful in doing so. Running back onto the point, almost every member of Lunatic High is either killed or has run away. Sorry, that's another team. And you saw they got good percentage on it, but they weren't able to finish it out because of that EMP that came out there late in the fight. Another push coming in shortly. As Lunatic High has several members with ultimates. We saw a Dragon Blade get used at the end of the last fight, which didn't really do much. We saw a great stick there. Oh, it wasn't even the stick that killed it. It was Who Are You on the Genji, of course, stealing the kills, as Genjis like to do. Self-destruct from the side of youngsters, tries to clean up some members of Lunatic High, but doesn't. It does demech Zephyr, however. Fight is still happening here on this point. Another EMP from the youngsters, followed by a sound barrier to try to gain a foothold yet again. And it seems to be working for it. The EMP is just so brutal to deal with. Another Dragon Blade, very late Dragon Blade from Who Are You. Manages to do some work this time, getting one kill and demeching the diva from the youngsters, but wasn't enough to hold. And strangely enough, my youngsters do an excellent job of holding off Lunatic High from even getting the first point. A full hold there on the side, and the Lunatic High fans are unhappy once again.